Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hello, I'm DJ Ross. I am in Mountain View, California.
Each week here on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week we're playing Pokémon Legends Arceus and Boomerang X.
Oh, finally a Pokemon show.
The Pokemon show.
Although I did not play a Pokemon game. We had discussed it at some point. Because there is that one I wanted to play, but we decided, or did we decide this? Maybe I just felt like that would be too much Pokemon at once.
Yeah, we have to be sensitive to the needs of our audience, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but
yeah.
I'm glad you stepped up and decided to take a Pokemon for the team.
Have we had a Pokemon show? Have we played a Pokemon game to talk about? I believe so, right?
Well, it was Pokemon Picross. I don't know if that counts.
In 529 episodes, is this the first time we've uttered the phrase Pokemon?
That's absolutely not true. I played Pokemon X way back in the day. This show has been going on for a while.
Yeah. I think I might have played one of those
too. Surely there must have been one other.
Okay, well.
You probably played some Pokemon card game at some point. I'm sure we're just like... We're missing tons and tons of Pokemon games.
I've not played Pokemon Snap. I feel like that's probably the one that I would probably enjoy the most, I suspect.
Yeah, we do compare a lot of games to Pokemon Snap.
Yeah.
Case in point, just last week, talking about Boomerang Generation.
Yeah.
But maybe that is true. Maybe we've just never played a proper Pokemon game.
Pokemon Snap, the gold standard for taking
Pokemon
pictures
Go.
in a video game.
Talk quite a bit about that game. Or at least I did.
Yeah, you did. That's true. Absolutely. I've never played that, but
right.
Okay. All right. So we've touched on the Pokemon thing before.
Yes, we are aware they exist.
Mm-hmm. Although it does not help with my confusion when playing Pokemon Legends Arceus, and we'll get to that.
Okay, I was going to say I had a very similar experience the last time, or not just the last time, whenever I try to play a mainline Pokemon game.
It's a lot of me going, what is happening right now? Yeah, it's really deeply confused by a lot of the things happening in this video game.
And that's different from other video games?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think there's got to be some presumption on behalf of the folks who make Pokemon games, the Pokemon company, as it were, that their audience gets it. Like there's a shorthand, right? Like how many people are arriving at a Pokemon game for the very first time in 2021 or 2022, even this current year?
At least one.
At least me, yeah. I don't know. It feels like it's certainly there's a like a nostalgia chord to this. There's people in their like 30s and 40s who are playing Pokemon games because they always have. I suspect those people have kids who are arriving at this for the first time. So to a certain degree, those games have to sort of reach both of those audiences. But yeah, I don't know. If you're a kid in 2022, do you arrive at a Pokemon game with a full understanding of like, you know, different types of Pokemon and what they are and when they appear and what your main should be when you battle other Pokemons and things like that. Because, Legends assumed I knew those things. And I did not.
I kind of feel like it depends on how young of a kid you're talking about, but if you're like pretty young and getting into Pokemon or just any RPG for that matter, maybe you don't pick up on a lot of that stuff because it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
maybe you just pick one. You're like, oh, Pikachu, he's cool, so you put him on your team, and that's who you use.
He's famous. He's a detective.
Yeah,
I've heard of him.
He's a detective, right? I feel like getting into a game now, my process is so different than how I would approach them as when I was younger. And maybe I'm not even talking about as young as I imagine like the youngest Pokemon players to be. But even going back when I think about starting up a new Final Fantasy game back in the day, I feel like in retrospect I had very little understanding of what was actually happening in that game. I'd be like, oh man, this guy can cast fire spells. That's cool. Let's never think about the implications of that, or like when to effectively exploit that in battle or whatever. And that kind of brings it to modern day. I'll be watching like speed runs or just somebody playing Final Fantasy on Twitch or something, and they're doing all these crazy things like, oh man, so if you use this specific fire spell against this one enemy, it does critical damage, or it has this weird obscure property that just everybody in the Final Fantasy community seems to know. And I'm just like, wait a minute, when did they explain that? Is it because I was like 10 years old when I played this game? I just didn't pick up on all the details.
Everyone else has been pulled aside by the Final Fantasy master and had this secret whispered into their ear. You somehow maybe were out sick that day or something. I'm not sure, but maybe.
Oh man, I missed Final Fantasy Day at school. That would be the worst.
Yeah. So I think that's probably like a portion of the thing I'm dealing with Pokemon Legends is that I'm conditioned from previous video games, from previous RPGs specifically, to think that like some of these very early decisions that you make are important, and that if you choose poorly, if you choose incorrectly, or don't sort of fully explore all of your options, that you will later regret it. If the decision that you make in hour 2 has an impact on some horrible thing down the line in hour 98, you're going to be angry that you made that call. And maybe you're right, DJ, in that probably these Pokemon games are meant to be super accessible and super kind of user friendly and unbreakable in a way that maybe I'm not accustomed to RPGs being.
I would think that, in order to get through the main storyline, it probably doesn't matter which Pokemon you use, unless you have just some disastrously composed team. Like, all my team can do is put enemies to sleep. That doesn't sound practical. But
I don't think you need to worry about like 5 at the beginning, and mine are all Bidoof. Is that a problem?
I've heard things about Bidoof.
He's super cute.
You want on your team.
He sees another little Bidoof and he goes, ah! And he like waves his little hand and waves at the other Bidoof, and it hops up and waves back at him. I'm like, I'm going to hang out with that guy. There's 5 of them. Let's do it.
But you have he's the only one on your team?
I'm joking. I didn't make that choice, of course. But
okay.
Yeah.
I was like, well, see, that seems questionable. You do want some sort of balance.
Some variety. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Eventually you're going to come up against somebody who's just Bidoof proof, and you're like, oh, now what? But anyway, so I feel like you can just get, if all you want to do is get through the story, just pick and use whoever you want. I feel like that should be totally viable. And it's only if you get into the whatever end game content exists where then you have to start thinking more carefully about who you're actually recruiting and training and all that stuff.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know if training is a huge part of this. I've spent my review of Pokemon Legends Arceus thus far is, let's call it a preview, is that I've maybe spent 6 hours with it. So I'm very much sort of into the game, but by no means have I seen everything this game has to offer here.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, training does not appear to be a big part of the Pokemon Legends Arceus experience, nor does the whole thing where you have to like defend your gym and stuff like that, which I've never done in a Pokemon game, but I hear people talk about.
I think that's just a Pokemon Go thing.
Is it just a Pokemon Go thing? Okay. But isn't it a thing that like in Pokemon games there are different, like there's Team Rocket, and like they're the bad guys, and you have to like beat them, right?
Yeah, well, there's always like the rival team.
Yeah,
I think it's not always Team Rocket. There was like Team Galactic or whatever.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I don't know how they figure into the grand scheme of things, whether they just show up periodically to harass you, or whether they're like the final boss, or however that works in a Pokemon game. But
right. They murdered your father. You have to. No, I don't know. Yeah, there does not appear to be that in the game thus far. I've certainly met an assortment of very colorful and eccentric characters, but nobody who has sort of emerged as kind of the big bad. The big bad is this sort of, in Arceus anyways, is this ominous thing that's this sort of portal in the sky, this hole above a mountain, with sort of lightning and swirling clouds and stuff like that appears to have had an ill effect on the normally docile alpha Pokemon, the big scary Pokemon that roam the fields, and they have glowing red eyes, and they will attack you unprovoked and just wipe you out. And because it's a Pokemon game, no one dies. You just get knocked out, and you wake up back in your bed. And I think you lost a little bit of your money.
It's like Valheim.
Yeah. So you're trying to figure out sort of what's happening. Why are the normally docile, massive Pokemon suddenly super violent and angry with us? Yeah. And you're a little kid. They say you're 15, but by my eye, you look like you're about 8 in the game. Yeah. And but you are a Pokemon master. Like you.
You already are a master.
You already are. Yeah, early in the game, you. I don't want to get into spoilers if this is important to people, but you are discovered, and quickly dispatch 3 fairly easy Pokemon, like back to back. And there's a scientist who's like, oh my god, I've never seen such skill before. I've never seen someone nab 3 super easy base level Bidoof, and Bidoof.
3 Bidoofs at once.
3 Bidoofs at once, without getting hurt. And then you get back to he's like, you must come to the village with me. I'm a crazy scientist. I'm trying to build the world's first Pokédex. And
okay, so just like backing up a little bit.
Yeah, sorry.
This is not a standard Pokemon game, right? Isn't this sort of like it's like a Pokemon origin story or something?
Yeah,
it's in the distant past.
Correct. It feels like it's sort of like feudal times. You're not in a and I don't have a point of reference for the modern games. I guess the mainline games, the X's and the Y's and the Diamonds and the Pearls, but those are sort of have a modern setting, right? Where you're like in cities and things like that. Yeah.
I feel like they're meant to take place like now.
Sure. Pokemon Legends Arceus, your character clearly appears to be from a modern time, but has mysteriously woken up in sort of a feudal version of the Sinnoh region, which I'm told is from Pokemon.
Right. Like, just checks out.
Yeah. And everybody has, sort of the outfitting of their clan and has very rudimentary homes and things like that. The village elder is a bit of a warlord, and there's, a couple little shops and things like that. It's clearly a very different time. People make a lot of comments about, like, you show up in, board shorts and a Pokemon t-shirt and a pair of, Adidas slides, and all of the people in Village are like, what's up with your strange costume, young man?
Why are you wearing a t-shirt with the monster that just slaughtered half the village last week?
Right. Well, see, that's the thing is like the Pokemon don't appear to be... outside of the village, there's like tons of fields and desert and things like that, and there are wild Pokemon running everywhere. But the main sort of perspective that the people in the village have on Pokemon is that they're terrifying.
Okay.
That there's like, I can't believe that you're not afraid of Pokemon. I can't believe that you were able to dispatch 3 Pokemon without getting hurt. There's a woman who's like, oh man, I think a Starly is so cute. I would love to see a Starly. So you capture one for her as one of your early missions, and you show her this little Pokemon that looks like a little starling, looks like a little bird. And she's like, oh my god, he's super adorable. So one of your prompts is, would you like to pet him? And she runs away in horror. No, I couldn't imagine. It's terrifying to me. And like, it's an adorable bird.
It's a bird.
Yeah. So people are in general very afraid or kind of ill-informed about the nature of Pokemon. And they're all super impressed by 15-year-old you who rolls into the world completely unafraid of Pokemon, and willing to work with the wacky scientist in town to build the world's first Pokédex and prove to the people that, we can live, peacefully alongside Pokemon. And in fact, there are, people who have Pokemon partners who have little Pokemons that live with them and fight with them and things like that. And yeah.
Oh, not that kind of partner.
No, it's not. No, it's not that kind of partner. I don't.
Okay, I was like, oh wow, what's going on in this game?
No. It's a kids game, DJ. It's for children. How
okay, well,
dare you?
I don't know what's happening. I heard it's like turning over a new leaf in this one.
This is NC-17 Pokemon. No, it's yeah, you do as you get a little further into the game, and I apologize if I'm spoiling anything for anybody. Send me angry emails, and I apologize. I'm not going to
just
go too
full spoilers on Pokemon Arceus because we don't know what's a spoiler or not.
But you do eventually sort of get out of your little village and you start talking to other people in the region, and there are other sort of like colonies, little tribes of people, excuse me, out in the world who have, maybe spent a little more time around Pokemon and have some that sort of live within the village or kept as pets, or there's another village that sort of disdains you because your village used Pokeballs to sort of collect Pokemon and gives you a lot of grief about sort of imprisoning them, and that Pokemon should be able to run free and live alongside of us instead of being shrunk down and put into a Pokeball. So they give you a little bit of grief about the way that you keep Pokemon, which I think is fair. I think it's a little strange that people do that. And by people, I mean the characters in this video game.
Right.
Yeah.
Having missed out on the last 25 years of Pokemon lore, I wonder if they've ever really explored what's going on when they go into the Pokeball. Are they just in suspended animation in there? Or do they have a little, I don't know, a little room they're just hanging out in?
Yeah.
Not sure what happens.
Is it painful? Does it hurt? I don't how are they eating? How are they, urinating in there? Is there plumbing? I don't know how these things work. Yeah, I have no clue.
Is it like in Star Trek where it looks like the same Pokemon comes out, but actually that Pokemon was killed and a duplicate came out?
I don't know. That's horrifying to think of. Is that a Star Trek thing?
Yeah, every time they get in the transporter, that kills you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on your metaphysical view of how consciousness works, but no, it's just an exact copy of you getting out on the other end, and they disintegrate the first copy of you.
Wow, that's much darker than I was expecting from Star Trek.
Yeah. So I just like to trot that out because that's something a lot of people don't realize. Don't get into a transporter. But
you're not aware.
Don't get into a Pokeball.
The first copy of you. There you go. Is the first copy of you aware that it's going to be? Well, yeah. Presumably, you would have this information. If you get in the transporter, I'm going to be disintegrated, but my consciousness will move into the copy.
Yeah. So you don't even think about it. You're just like, "Oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to show up over there," but somebody else shows up over there.
Yeah. With you inside their skull.
Well, no, you're not there anymore.
Wow. I feel like
we can get into this whole thing, but
yeah, let's not.
Pokeballs.
Let's not do that.
We don't know what happens when
they
go.
No, I don't know. It's surprising. I think I always assumed that you'd throw the Pokeball and it sort of opens like a Pac-Man and it sort of chomps the little critter, but it flies in their direction and then a laser beam comes out of it and zaps the Pokemon and sucks it into the ball.
Right. And then whatever happens to their consciousness at that point, no one knows.
No one knows, yeah. I mean, maybe...
Or we don't know.
This sort of rudimentary version of the Pokemon world there, they don't have the technology to suss that out. But somehow you can build as many Pokeballs as you want from an apricot and a acorn, I think.
Is that how you make a Pokeball?
Yeah, there's a kind of shitty crafting system is.
Okay. I just want to apologize to all the longtime Pokemon fans who are listening to this episode and are just going to be infuriated for the next 45 minutes.
Oh, undoubtedly, yes, yeah. I'm not even sorry about it. DJ can apologize, but I feel like I don't know. I've shown up at a one of those bars that's really into sports, and I just walk in and I'm like, hey, what's going on in this bar? And everybody's talking a different language and is into very different things, and I don't get it.
And they just put you on a microphone and make you talk about football for the next hour.
Right. Yeah. And I hang out and I try to learn their language and try to find out what motivates them. Like, I don't know. Like Mutual of Omaha presents Randy at a sports bar. Yeah.
So it seems to me like the goal is to throw this ball through the thing.
Yep. So how many like how many coins do you get if you get one in? Yeah. I don't know. So I don't even know what I was talking about. So yeah, there's a crafting system in this, and you do have to build some of the supplies that you need to do your work, to work with the crazy scientist to make the world's first Pokédex. Yeah, so you have to make Pokeballs. Sometimes people will give them to you as a reward for doing favors for them, which is kind of fun. But more often than not, you have to find trees with fruit in them, and it's a specific fruit. I think it's like an apricorn or something like that, some weird name. And you have to throw your Pokemon at it, and it shakes the tree for you. You can't shake it yourself. You have to throw the Pokemon on it, and it does it. And
okay, so you're still like, you're recruiting Pokemon.
Yes,
but
so
it sounds like you're just using them to do things other than fight other Pokemon.
Sure. So to help the crazy scientist, you have to go out into the environment outside the village and collect as many Pokemon as you can find. And some of them are are docile and friendly and kind of curious about you and will come up to you, and you betray that trust by imprisoning them in a Pokeball. Some of them are afraid of you and they will run in terror. So you have to like lure them with food and things like that, or little baits that you get from also foraging. And then you sneak up on them and then imprison them in a Pokeball. And some of them are openly hostile to you, are angry that you've dared to come near them, and will attack you. And if they attack you too many times and you don't fight back with a Pokemon, you will get knocked out and dragged back to the village and, as I mentioned, wake up in your bed. But you can then battle them if you have some Pokemon handy that you've worked with over time and have trained a little bit and have leveled up and fought, and they have some cool new abilities. It just turns into a pretty kind of rudimentary turn-based battle.
Okay, so at that point it just turns into one of those other Pokemon games?
It just turns into your pretty standard Pokemon fare, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, sounds great. What's not to like if you're already a Pokemon fan?
Yeah, so it certainly pushes. I think if it pushes the buttons that a Pokemon fan would expect the game to sort of present. I think I'm still trying to sort of figure out like what else is in here, because the marketing, the scale and the scope of this thing definitely felt like they were going for, it's like Breath of the Wild, but it's Pokemon. It's a big open world and you can do all kinds of cool stuff, but it's still Pokemon. And I'm not finding all of that other stuff. It feels like you're kept on a very narrow path.
Okay.
Of sort of
that's what I was going to ask. It brings me to my question. So why are you here? It's because it looks like Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I was here because it looks like Breath of the Wild. I was here because, oh, look, they did something new. They did something kind of different with a Pokemon game. It looks a little bit like Breath of the Wild, which is a game I like. And I sort of like that Breath of the Wild has come out far enough in the past now that there are games that are sort of inspired by and aping the kind of aesthetic and assembly of a Breath of the Wild experience. And I think, unfortunately, to compare Pokemon Legends Arceus to Breath of the Wild is a pretty massive disservice to Breath of the Wild. That there was so much in Breath of the Wild that was just sort of emergent experiences, just things that would sort of mysteriously happen as you were making your way to the next objective. Chatting with, other villagers, stumbling upon combat happening between a Rhinox and a bokoblin, and you get to choose. Do I want to get into the fight? Do I want to wipe everybody out? Do I just want to watch from the distance and then kind of scoop in afterwards and pick up all the loot? There were dungeons and there were outposts, and there were always sort of little mysteries and little interesting things just sort of happening around you that were a pretty big distraction from the main crux of the game, which is, take down Ganon, as it always is in a Zelda game.
Right.
There's not a lot of that in Pokemon Arceus. It really feels like you really just gotta collect them all and, don't stray too far off that path. There's not a lot of other stuff that sort of distracts you from that main quest. And in fact, it feels like the game sort of knows that too, because it's not just a matter of like, oh, there's a Bidoof. Let me throw the ball at it and catch it. I've caught a Bidoof. It goes in the Pokédex. We're done. No, you have to catch a Bidoof 26 times.
Oh, why?
Expanding research or something like that. I'm not sure. The game gives some sort of flimsy explanation that I've forgotten at this point as to why you have to do it. You have to see the Bidoof use a special attack once, maybe 3 times, sometimes 5 times. And that gives you a little check mark in the Pokédex as you're collecting. You have to maybe, have a Bidoof fight I don't know, pick another thing, a Starly. I'm not good at naming Pokemons. So each critter in the Pokédex has like a massive sheet full of little conditions you have to sort of like participate in, collect them under. You get bonus points. You get a couple extra checks if you catch your Bidoof at night.
Oh, but they have to. It's not like you're just observing them doing these things. You then have to like capture them immediately after they do this.
Yeah, you get points for a capture, and you get points for a defeat. So if you just catch them without being detected, that's one. If you engage them in battle and best them, that's another. But then you have to do that 5 times. You have to catch them at night using the sleep attack, et cetera, et cetera. So every Pokemon has a different sort of like sheet like this, full of different sort of conditions. And yeah, you get a check for finding them the first time. But the game really wants you to catch them over and over and over again under slightly different sort of variations of.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be like Pokemon Snap or like Pinko Park, where they would say, hey, just a photo of this thing is fine, but if you can take a photo of it doing this, that's even better. And then maybe you can take doing this other thing. But if you like, you just have to like capture them immediately after that and then move on to the next one. That's a little weird.
The condition almost always requires that you catch them. It's not about just sort of witnessing them or taking their picture or anything like that. I don't think there's a function to take a picture of a character in the game. They save that for Snap, apparently. But it's it's a bunch of different either sneak up on them and capture them unaware consequences or conditions, or engage them in combat and get them to use this one type of attack, or get them to, etc. Be beaten in a combat. But it's not just one time; it's over and over and over again. Your little card has little check marks next to the picture of Bidoof that shows, catch 1 unaware, catch 3 unaware, catch 5 unaware, and it goes up to like 26 or something like that. And
you don't have to do that. Like, I was just going to ask, is that more like, like the Nook stamps, where it's like eventually you'll have collected 500 fossils, but nobody's expecting you to do that in month 1.
Not in I suspect it's not really sort of necessarily required of the first playthrough, but it doesn't feel like there's enough other stuff in the game to continue to be sort of engaging or interesting. So I don't know. It feels very much like padding. And I suspect there's a contingency of the Pokemon group, the Pokemon fandom, that wants to sort of see every nook and cranny of this game and will happily work through the Pokédex and meet all of these conditions and get the satisfaction of the green check mark when they hit all of them. But I don't know. It feels real granular and slightly less fun.
Well, maybe more of it will open up as you get farther into it, because for 6 hours of Breath of the Wild, you probably weren't even off the plateau yet, right?
Right.
So who knows what could happen?
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed because I thought one of the major selling points of this game was like it's a whole open world full of wild Pokemon roaming around, and if there was sort of like a wildlife sort of researcher or observer component, that sounds kind of cool to me. I mean, it's a little bit Pokemon Snap, so like you said, maybe they already have that covered. But it's kind of weird. I wonder if it will develop in other ways.
There is some of that. There are, there early in the game, there's a river that the guards won't let you cross. That the guard at the bridge is like, I'm not gonna let you over here because you're only a level 0. You have to be a level 1 explorer, and all of the critters on this side of the river are much more advanced than you're ready for. So you come back to him later and he's like, oh, I see you got upgraded. We'll let you across the bridge. So the cool thing about it kind of early on is that you can see across the river, and you can see that there's a bunch of really cool critters over there, like different Pokemon I've never seen before. And holy cow, there's a giant Snorlax with glowing red eyes, and he's stomping around just tearing up the environment. And I'm like, wow.
I've seen this guy.
I've seen this guy, yeah. So it's cool because it sort of teases you a little bit. It teases like, hey, this is something kind of fun you can look forward to later. But the thing that you're really going to do when you get over there is the same thing that you've done on this side of the river too. I'm going to sneak up on some of them. I'm going to catch them. I'm going to take a picture. No, I'm not going to take a picture of them. I'm going to engage a couple of them in battle. I don't know if I'm ready to fight that giant Snorlax yet, so we'll have to see if I get wiped out on the first try. So it's, and the game has a lot of little sort of like, little bridges like that, a little like, oh, there's a next thing that's coming, it's going to be real scary, and then you get there and it's just, again, it feels like more of the same stuff that you've been doing over and over and over again. There's not there's not sort of the variety of a Breath of the Wild experience. There's not and obviously comparing every game to Breath of the Wild is not fair, but if we're going to do a Pokemon open world game, at least use the open world a little bit. Put some other stuff out there to be interesting and engaging and to interact with. And that's a little off the path, but no, it keeps you very much on the you must fill the Pokédex pack.
Well, I mean, that is kind of true to past Pokemon games, so maybe they don't want to stray too far from it. But at the same time, it would be cool if it just completely blew it open like Breath of the Wild did with Zelda.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's coming. Like I said, it's not fair to judge the entire thing based on the first 6 hours, but there does not feel like a lot of variety. And it does feel like every time I get out of the village, I'm excited, like, oh, you now have access to this region, this other area you couldn't get to before. And you get there and it's, oh, cool, there's a couple little ones rolling around and I got to hide in the grass and throw a ball on them. And, oh, there's a big scary one. I'm not ready to fight him yet. So it's just, again, they're just gating you behind kind of repeating the same actions over and over and over again, and there doesn't appear to be anything to sort of break that up.
I don't know what to tell you. You just got to be, more excited to see more Pokemon in the wild.
To catch them all, yeah. What a flimsy concept for a video game, right? We're going to put 100 and whatever of these things in the game. You have to catch all of them. That's it. That's the whole plot. That's the entire thing. It just feels like it needs more. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't know how. It depends on how well they handle it. If it's just like a matter of going to the physical location on the map where the enemies change or the Pokemon change or whatever, and you're like, oh, now I can catch this one, then that's not as interesting. But I was thinking, like, I really think you should play Bugsnax because you go out and it's basically the same concept where you have to take photos of all these things, if I'm remembering correctly. But there are all these different weird conditions. Oh no, you have to capture them. That's right. I don't remember how much photography is in that game. But anyway, there are all these different conditions that you have to satisfy to like get them to spawn, and in some cases get them to like come over to you so you can capture them or lure them into a trap somehow. And to be fair, there are not nearly as many Bugsnax as there are Pokemon. So I feel like it would be very difficult to come up with interesting sort of scenarios to capture every single Pokemon in the same way that you capture Bugsnax. But I don't know, I got like a little bit of a Pokemon vibe playing that because, they are just, or like how I imagine Pokemon to be anyway. Because they're just like these weird critters and you you do a little bit of like tracking and trapping in Bugsnax, which I wasn't totally expecting.
Yeah, I was super excited about that game when it first was teased, and then yeah, for some reason, as soon as it came out, I didn't I didn't get it. So yeah, it remains on my list. I will have to get to it someday.
I wonder how much of like the shortcomings you're experiencing are just like more baggage of the Pokemon series just being a 25-year-old like behemoth at this point. Because I feel like a lot of like whenever a new Pokemon game comes out, you hear a lot of the same complaints, which are like, why doesn't this look better? Or it feels like it hasn't really moved past the previous Pokemon games. But if they try and actually make some of those changes, they always inevitably end up either like reducing the Pokédex. I think that's what happened in the last couple installments, Sword and Shield, and people were very upset about that. Or they had to cut corners in places, moving the whole thing to like be in 3D on the Switch, as opposed to on the 3DS or wherever it was before. At the same time, just trying to maintain as many of the hundreds of Pokemon in the Pokedex already, because if they take any more out, people are going to be even more upset. But it just feels like Pokemon fans are, I don't know, just very demanding.
Very hard to please. Yeah, I do remember one of the previous installments, people being very like, why can't I roller skate in this one? I could roller skate in the previous one. And I'm like, because it's not the previous game. It's a new game. And, I have games like that too. I probably have spent the last 2 years comparing Animal Crossing to previous Animal Crossing games and mentally noting and maybe publicly noting the places where it comes up short. But, yeah, I don't know. There was a part of me that saw the trailers for Arceus thinking, this is the first Pokemon game I'm going to get into because it's the one that's going to sort of, it's a reboot, right? It's going back to scratch. It's the first Pokédex. It hopefully is not sort of beholden or indebted to kind of the baggage of all the previous Pokemon games. Plus it feels like it's this kind of open world experience, maybe a little Breath of the Wild. And yeah, unfortunately it does not, at least in these early hours, feel like the developers either had the permission or the confidence to shake all that baggage off and do something kind of unique and fun with it. It really just feels like and take this with a grain of salt, giving my lack of experience with previous Pokemon games, it feels like what I expect a Pokemon game to play like, just with a bit of a different sort of set of sort of environmental conditions.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I will apologize as I continue to play this thing if it suddenly turns out that there's so much more stuff to do and it's just a whole different game in the final 24 hours. But I don't know. I don't know if it's going to go there. It just feels very safe.
I feel like that's kind of like they had to stay on the safe side.
Yeah.
When they're making a new one of these at this point, or at least this feels like one of the most adventurous entries in a while. Just like they really mixed up, as an outsider from my perspective, it seems like they've taken some chances with the formula. But at the same time, it's hard to find that balance between, okay, we have to somehow make a game that's very interesting and has new concepts, and at the same time apply all of those to like 5,000 different Pokemon which already exist. Like you have to compromise somewhere.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't know. I think sort of the comparison to Breath of the Wild is interesting in that Breath of the Wild specifically was, it hits all of the notes that you would expect from a Legend of Zelda game, but it's also a pretty serious departure. Not just in sort of in terms of like environment, but just sort of the way the whole game plays, the way that you interact with the world, et cetera, et cetera. I have extolled the virtues of Breath of the Wild a lot on this show. I don't have history with Pokemon games, so I'm not sure how big of a departure it is, but it just feels like they were given this unique opportunity with a big open world to do something interesting, and I'm not finding it yet. Yeah. And I don't know if that is lack of resources, lack of interest in exploring those things. I'm not sure why you would come up short in that regard, but that is my observation.
What about games like that Phoenix Rising or whatever? Did that sort of satisfy the open world exploration in the same way as Breath of the Wild? Because that was also, I mean, that felt like it came out of the same mold almost.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, that felt like more of a puzzle game. It certainly had sort of the combat and the exploration. It did not necessarily have the strong characters, secondary characters that Breath of the Wild did. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of Phoenix Rising. What was that? Immortals Phoenix Rising. That was like discovery, that was sort of going up over a hill or into a cave or behind a bluff and going, oh, what is this? There's a little like environmental puzzle. There's a locked box. There's a mystery to solve here in 8 seconds of detoured gameplay. And you could totally miss it and that'd be fine. Or you can stumble upon it and be distracted by it for a few minutes and have fun solving the puzzle. There's nothing like that in Pokemon. I found a waterfall, and I was like, surely there must be something secret and cool hidden behind this waterfall. Nope, it's just rocks. There's nothing.
Come on. That's like video game 101. Yeah,
it desperately needs like cool things tucked into the environment, and it doesn't have anything like that. It really is just... Man, that first level is such a slog because it's just rolling hills with a little stream running through it and, trees blowing in the wind. It looks fine, but there's no secrets to find. There's no sense of discovery. It's just really, I don't know, it feels really bland. And I don't know if this is what people expect from Pokemon, but it's certainly not what I expect from an open world game. To that end, I don't want it to be, I don't know, pick The Division or one of the Tom Clancy games or an Assassin's Creed that has 500,000 blips on a screen that I'm trying to sort of decipher, like, what is my objective? What am I here to do? I don't need the map bloat. I just, if I think there's an expectation with an open world game that there be something kind of emergent about that experience, about being in that world that feels less linear and feels more of a sort of bespoke or unique experience. And I'm not getting that vibe from Arceus.
Yeah, not something more than just a larger area to catch Pokemon in.
Right, yeah.
That's so weird because I felt like I forget where people ended up landing on Sword and Shield, but it seemed like that was also a full 3D environment, or at least it seemed like it. I don't know how similar it is to Arceus. I wonder how well received that was.
Yeah, no, I don't have a sense of it.
I've heard very mixed things. Like Pokemon fans seem to go back and forth on these things all the time. I'm not really sure what to make of it after launch week. Well, I mean, I hope it does either open up new systems or just reveal more of itself to you as you play more of it.
Yeah. I'm a little into it. I keep finding myself sort of going back to it. I almost forgot to play Animal Crossing yesterday because I was playing Pokemon all day. And I got to like 11:30. I was like, I didn't buy turnips this morning. I didn't do anything in Animal Crossing today because I've been playing Pokemon all day. So yeah, there is something compelling about that flimsy construct of collecting them all. But I don't know. It does not meet expectations thus far.
Is the main story is not really holding your interest then?
I don't know. I like the Doctor. He's kind of cool. He's a little batty. He's got like a doctor lab coat on and dresses like sort of a respectful member of the community, but always wears like an ear flap hat with a giant pom-pom on it for some reason. Yeah, he's just eccentric, and like his idea of sort of like celebrating like your big first day of sort of filling entries in the Pokédex is you get a high five, and then everybody goes out for potato mochi at the local pub and grub. So you get this little cutscene of you and your new friends in your new village, and the eccentric doctor sort of raising a toast over potato mochi and a satisfying meal to wrap up the day. So. Yeah, I mean, stuff like that is kind of fun, kind of satisfying. He's an interesting character. I kind of dig him. But yeah, I don't know how much more of that there is to sort of be discovered. Again, it feels, unfair to judge this fairly big game by the first 6 hours of experience. But thus far, I'm not, I'm not finding too many hooks to drag me across the finish line.
Okay, well.
Yeah,
we'll have to do a 60-hour check-in.
Right.
Let's
yes.
get to that point.
I'm gonna keep plugging away at it, I'll loop everybody back in after a couple of weeks and a few more hours with it.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So wait, who else is on your team besides Bidoof? And the Starly or whatever.
God, I don't remember their names. I have a little. There's a little thing that looks like a mouse. With great big ears, and he's got a cross.
Wait, who did you pick for your starter? That's the most important question.
Bidoof.
Was Bidoof a starter? I don't know what's going on. Okay, sure, Bidoof.
Is the starter your first one?
I thought, don't they trot out 3 Pokemon at some point and make you pick one?
Yes, in the first 10 minutes, the 3 Pokemon that the doctor has blown away that you were able to capture, it's a Starly, a Bidoof, and I forget the third guy. And he then says to you, one of these could be your companion. One of these will be your buddy. If you'd like to borrow one of my my little Pokemon who got away. So I picked the Bidoof.
Oh, okay. I thought it was always like, fire and grass, or I don't know. I don't know what type of Pokemon a Bidoof is, so
I don't either.
I shouldn't be. I'm just gonna stop talking about it.
Yeah, I've had to Google, and I feel like maybe some of it's kind of irrelevant, but I've had to Google a little bit of that to figure out sort of like, especially the nighttime ones. There are weird like ghost Pokemon that come out at night that just sort of materialize out of the air, and they're. A lot of the Pokemon have some sort of resemblance to like real world characters. Like a Bidoof is clearly a beaver, a Starly is a starling, etc., etc. There's a thing called like a Ponyo or something like that, and it's a pony, but his mane and tail are fire.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So, yeah, the nighttime ones, the creepy ghost ones, are bizarro. They're just like a bag of eyeballs with long spaghetti arms and things. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on there, but I want to hang out with that guy.
Yeah, you want that one. You want like a Gengar or something. Is Gengar in this one?
I don't know. Maybe I've not found him yet. No.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, what was the question?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, who was your starter? And it was Bidoof, apparently.
Bidoof,
so,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I'm still hanging on to Bidoof. He's like level 13 now. He's come a long way. Yeah.
All right. It's going to take that guy all the way to the end.
It's going to be a sad, sad day when I have to give him up. I have to turn him loose.
Yeah. Oh, no, don't do that.
I have to imprison him in a Pokeball forever.
Put him back in the Pokeball. Yeah.
Just suspended animation. Yeah. When I have to transfer his consciousness to a whole new Bidoof.
Oh yeah, this is not going to be the same. Just I don't know, something slightly different about him. Okay, so well,
tell me about Boomerang X.
Yeah, so I played this game called Boomerang X. Just yet another first-person shooter because I'm always playing them. This one though is interesting because you have a boomerang rather than some sort of gun.
So it's not just a clever name.
Right. No, it's not a pun on anything. You actually have a boomerang. I guess in this case, that means you're not really shooting anything either. So it's not even a first-person shooter. It's a first-person thrower or whatever.
So it's not like a gun in your right hand and a boomerang in your left.
It's not a gun that shoots boomerangs. No, okay. You're not. Neither are you. Dual wielding a boomerang and a gun.
Oh man, I just have a boomerang. Think of a gun that shoots boomerangs. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, well, that would be interesting. It'd be a problem when they all come back around at you. But anyway, so in this game, you are playing as some character who has washed up on some mysterious island, and it appears that you had come armed with a spear of some sort, but in the process of crashing on this island, the spear has broken, and you are left with just this weird boomerang to defend yourself. And it's not, it doesn't really look like a boomerang, like how you picture a boomerang. It's actually this like scary looking like glaive, I guess. I don't know if that's even the correct description of it, but it's like a kind of a pinwheel shaped, like I guess X shaped, since it's called Boomerang X. The X in the logo is actually the boomerang.
It's like the Nerf boomerang with like the 4 wings.
It's a bit like a Nerf boomerang, except instead of being made out of friendly Nerf material, it has these 4 terrifying looking spikes on the ends. But that's what you want, because as you spend time on this island, you're just attacked by these spooky looking monsters who appear out of thin air. And you're left to just fend them off with your boomerang. And it's basically an arena shooter. You move from one room on this island to the next. Occasionally doors will slam down and monsters will appear, and it will be like, you have to clear this many waves of monsters before you unlock the door and move on to the next area. Which is cool, because I haven't played a game like this in quite some time.
That is not my favorite thing that happens in video games.
Right, yeah, I know you love your arenas.
The invisible door closes.
Inside them.
Yep. Waves of enemies come through. Yeah, I'm not a fan.
To be fair, in this case, it's a very visible door. You can definitely see the one that's going to close right in front of you. And
really?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know it's coming.
Yeah.
But you're not. You have a boomerang though as your sort of primary means of defense. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I wasn't. When I picture throwing a boomerang, I imagine, you throw it and it takes this wide, like curving arc around the room to get back to you. But in this, it's more or less like you just throw it in a straight line. It comes straight back to you 9 out of 10 times. So there's not a whole lot of there's not a lot of acrobatics you need to perform in order to actually catch the boomerang. Thankfully, because I think that would be a nightmare. It's just an out and back.
It's like a yo-yo.
It's like a yo-yo, yeah, more or less. You can even hit one of the shoulder buttons. The sequel, just Yo-Yo X.
Yo X, yeah.
If your boomerang, for whatever reason, is taking longer to return than you like, you just push one of the shoulder buttons and it instantly pops back in your hand. It's very convenient. Wow. The combat in this, though, it's very satisfying, just because in general it's fun to throw the boomerang. It's it's just different than shooting a gun, which I like. But also they've given you a bunch of these weird like movement mechanics and sort of different feats you can perform, which help you navigate the the swarms of enemies that are trying to kill you. So first of all, I think the first thing you learn is you can, once you've thrown the boomerang, you can tap the throw button again to more or less teleport to wherever the boomerang happens to be. It's not really like an instant teleport. You kind of like zip along an invisible line to wherever it is. So it's a little bit like a grappling hook in that case.
Oh, interesting.
So I found that's very useful for making a quick escape. If you're about to be swarmed, you can just throw the boomerang in nearly any direction and just double tap, and suddenly you're completely safe on the other side of the room. You can also you get this ability called Flux, which allows you to kind of slow down time. Essentially, it's kind of like a bullet time feature, which has taken some getting used to. Basically, you throw it, or you start charging up the boomerang. Like you can, if you hold down the throw button, you'll start charging up a longer throw. But if you do that and also press the Flux button, you will just slow time for a little bit, which can help you line up a precision shot if you need to hit an enemy weak point or something like that. Or in a few cases, they've it's sort of asked me to like throw the boomerang and then do the little dash move to catch up with it in midair, and then start charging it in midair again, and then do the flux move. So you're kind of frozen in midair at that point.
Oh wow.
Which is a lot to wrap your head around. So the fights where it seemed like it was really required, I would just kind of, I definitely failed it quite a few times in a row. But fortunately, I was down to the last enemy in the room at that point, and occasionally he would summon some more trash enemies, but they wouldn't give me a huge hard time. So it gave me plenty of time to just practice this surprisingly technical maneuver. And then eventually you unlock also some other abilities, like you get kind of a scatter shot thing, and you can kind of hover yourself in midair, or not really hover, but you bring yourself to a stop in midair. So you would dash after the boomerang and just drop yourself to the ground rather than flying into some sort of hazard that was waiting on the other side of the room. So there's a surprising amount of stuff you can do on top of just throwing the boomerang in terms of how you maneuver yourself around these arenas.
Yeah.
It's not quite like the old Unreal Tournament days of double jumping and bouncing off walls and everything, but it does really feel like all these abilities were put in with sort of very high level play in mind. In fact, just going through the menu options at the start, there are a lot of options related to sort of speed running the game, and I can just imagine how ridiculous some of the speed run attempts at this game would look, because you would just be dashing all over the place and not even touching the ground because you're just hopping from one boomerang to the next. It would be kind of ridiculous.
It's like the high level Dishonored players who you watch them.
Oh yeah.
Chain
Those
all
are
the
insane.
moves together, and you're like, wow, I was clearly playing a very different game.
Yeah, I was like, that is not how I play that game.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize you could do some of that stuff. So I imagine there's some moves people like the pro Boomerang X players are pulling off that
Cool.
are just unimaginable.
Look at the trailer for it now. It has a very unique look to it.
Yeah, the art style is really cool. It's it's been a big surprise. At first glance, it feels very, I don't say lo-fi, but very simple textures, kind of gritty, like a PlayStation 1 game or something. But they have such a great use of color in the environments and in the enemy design, that it's always very easy to tell where you're supposed to be going, or where enemies are approaching from. And so the environments themselves are just stunning to look at because they're so colorful and kind of whimsical. The whole island, I don't want to give away too much of what happens because it's kind of this unfurling mystery, but there was some kind of mantis society or some ancient society of weird bug people living there. And you just keep running into these evidence of abandoned houses or a kind of bug skeleton or something, and you're just man, can't wait to figure out what the deal with this place is. But just very, very unique kind of atmosphere.
Cool.
The monsters that pop up are just kind of these weird floating shadow monsters of some sort. Sometimes they'll look like spiders, sometimes they'll look like little floating jellyfish. Just very strange stuff, but very cool at the same time. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. The thing that first attracted me to this game, though, is that it is one of the first games, actually the first game that I've heard of that has official support for Flick Stick. Have you heard of this?
You've talked about it before, right?
Okay, I couldn't remember whether I had or not. Basically what this is it is a new sort of control scheme for playing first-person games using a controller. And it's a very unusual combination of kind of dual stick controls and also the gyroscope or motion controls.
Oh, no, okay, this is not what I had in mind then, because I think you talked about a harness that held your Switch vertical instead of horizontal.
Oh, that is the flip grip. That is a different thing.
That was the thing that I thought you were describing here, and I was like, how did that work with this game?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could use it. Well, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think that'd make any sense, actually. But anyway.
Go ahead, sorry.
So it's supposed to be this control scheme for people who have difficulty playing a first-person shooter game using traditional twin-stick controls, which I feel like should be everybody, because those are not good controls for, looking around in 360 degrees and all that stuff. What it does is it kind of takes over the right stick on the controller, so it doesn't perform as a typical camera stick anymore. You still have a very limited range of movement where you can press the stick forward and move it maybe like 30 or 45 degrees in either direction to look around a little bit in front of you. But the main twist is that if you flick the stick, as it were, to the left or right, you immediately turn 90 degrees in that direction. And in fact, if you just push it backwards, you don't start backpedaling like you would in. In this case, you would look up at the sky or look down on the ground, right? You just immediately turn 180 degrees and are facing backwards.
Oh.
So the idea is that it takes away sort of the precision movement, or some of the precision movement from the stick, to give you these very quick, large movements. And then you can use the gyroscope to do sort of fine-tuning. And you still have a little bit, like that short range of motion in the right stick to just look around a little bit. So I heard about this and I was like, well, this sounds ridiculous. Who wants to use a controller to play first-person shooters anyway? But the more games I've played that use gyro controls, or like gyro aiming specifically, the more I've sort of thought back about it and gone, okay, maybe there's something here. Because I wasn't even super hot about gyro controls in the first place. But after playing stuff like Splatoon or Monster Hunter Rise, which used gyro to, whenever you had an aiming reticle on the bow, or in the game, rather, you could use the motion controls to do that. And I was like, this is actually great. Every game should do this. Because, right stick isn't great. And maybe if you, just spent the last 10 years playing first-person shooters, you're just a pro sniper at this point with a controller. But I'm definitely not at that skill level.
Yeah.
I feel like gyro controls are an extremely good replacement. So I was very curious to see how this control scheme worked out.
Nice. I loved the sort of the rise of that in video games when it was like with sniping and things like that, or Breath of the Wild again used it for kind of bow and arrow controls. And yeah, it's cool to see that has sort of spawned additional uses in other video games, and now as a whole accessibility control scheme.
Yeah, I can see it that way too. So I've been attempting to play this from the very beginning using this completely different control scheme.
Yeah, how do you wrap your brain around that? It sounds like a lot of reprogramming.
Yeah, it's accurate. It started out, I was very confused because I thought that you would exclusively use the gyros to do any sort of fine movement, and that you could only turn 90 degrees using the right stick. So I'd have a lot of these weird situations where I'd be trying to walk down a hallway, but was doing it and making these 90-degree turns all the time. And if you were to be observing me in third person, I would probably just look like some insane robot, because I'd just be walk forward, all right, turn 90 degrees, walk this way in another straight line, and then turn another 90 degrees. It was terrible. But eventually I figured it out, or that you still have that little narrow range of motion, so you can still more or less walk along a curved path. But when you get into combat, it's more helpful for you to do the quick turns and the 180s and everything.
Right.
But it's great to have those options there.
Cool.
And it still takes a lot of tweaking in terms of controller sensitivity and the gyro sensitivity, because you essentially are not really using the stick anymore. So you have to figure out, okay, so how much do I want to be able to turn myself using just the gyros, or how practical is it for me to to turn the gyro sensitivity much higher than the default and all that stuff. And I had to say, for the first couple hours, I was kind of like, this seems like a mistake. I don't know what I've gotten myself into. But fortunately, I've stuck with it, and I think I'm getting the hang of it. I don't want to say that I'm ready to just start playing every game like this, or throw out my mouse and keyboard or whatever. But, it's more or less like having to relearn how a controller works or how aiming in 3D works. So I expected there to be some, a bit of a learning curve.
After 30-ish years of not using it that way.
Right. And it doesn't force it on you either. You can use traditional stick controls. You can use like gyro aiming. You can turn that completely on or off if you want. But I'm just kind of forcing myself to learn it, see how it goes.
Yeah.
And it's been very interesting. I can kind of imagine playing this with a more traditional control scheme. I think it would be just as enjoyable. But in this case, there's just this weird extra layer on top of it. I'm like, trying to relearn how to play a video game. It's kind of exciting.
Yeah, cool. You said that this is one of the first games to sort of support it. Are there other games we would have heard of that are enabling flick stick controls?
Well, I know there are mods for you to use it in like Doom, like the new Doom, and I think Doom Eternal, and I think Half-Life. But those are all mods. This is the first game that I'm aware of that supports it officially. So like I'm playing it on Switch. So it's like not really a way to mod your controller, Switch controller. What controller are you using? I'm using the 8-bit Do. It looks like a Super Nintendo controller with grips. So it's more or less like a DualShock or a PlayStation controller.
Cool.
It's working pretty well.
Yeah.
I did try it in handheld mode. That was not an incredible experience. But docked using a controller with a gyro in it, it's pretty good. Excellent. Plus, if you decide it's not for you, you can just turn the flick stick completely off and play the game as normal. So that is also an option.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be a lot to wrap my brain around.
Yeah, no, it is, to be honest. I just thought like this game seems minimal enough that why not? It's not incredibly demanding. It's not like a incredibly punishing or anything. Mm-hmm. In fact, most of the difficulty probably comes because I'm trying to use this weird control scheme. But
ding.
I feel like it's a fine environment for trying to learn something like this.
Sure, for low stakes, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's all single player. That I don't have any teammates complaining that I'm just running into a wall constantly.
Sounds like a really cool game. It looks like a very cool game. I'm intrigued by this.
Yeah, I was like not really sure what to expect just because the screenshots make it look like I've played a bunch of itch games that kind of look like this, and after 15 minutes, just like no, they forgot to put the game in here. But no, this one's actually really fun. I'm really enjoying just shooting down these weird shadow jellyfish or whatever they are, figuring out what's going on with this island. Hope it goes somewhere, but we'll see.
Those are those nighttime Pokemon again.
Yeah, maybe. They probably kind of look like them.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway.
Well, cool.
That is Boomerang X by developer Dang. I don't know what they've worked on previously, but this one is very cool.
Published by Devolver.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good gig. Cool. All right.
So very cool. On Switch and Steam, I should mention.
Fun. All right. Well, let's wrap this thing up. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about the episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to hang out with us on Discord, chat about video games and other fun stuff. You can get a link to that at VGHangover.com as well. And please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you can get a podcast. And help us out by telling your friends about the show.
Yeah. Really helps us get the word out, attract new listeners. One of the primary ways that people find out about the show. So we really appreciate if you just tell your friends.
Sure.
That's easy enough.
And we do have that
online at this point.
Series of billboards on the Pennsylvania Turnpike to tell people about the podcast. But
did those finally go up?
Those are finally exciting. Up. Yeah, we've actually got them booked for the whole year. So
nice. Okay, excellent. Yeah. I will. I'll stop by on my way home from work in New York City tomorrow or wherever.
Yeah.
Anyway, we want to give thanks again to Protodome this week for our intro and outro music. Please head on over to protodome.bandcamp.com. Maybe listen to a few songs, maybe buy an album or two. It's up to you.
Excellent. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it right now.
All right, excellent.
We'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.